Tam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakamritamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagadpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishware Rishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasri Gaura Bhakta Vinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Chapter 8. I don't really know. Do you remember the verse number? I don't think it was that high. Really? They had 12 yesterday, so we're up to 13. Okay. So 13. Om Ityekaksharam Brahma Vyaharan Mam Anusmaran Ya Prayati Tyajan Deham Sayati Paramam Gatim Om Ityekaksharam Brahma Vyaharam Mam Anusmaran Ya Prayati Tyajan Deham Sayati Paramam Gatim Om Ityekaksharam Brahma Vyaharan Mam Anusmaran Ya Prayati Tyajan Deham Sayati Paramam Gatim. Om Ityekaksharam Brahma Vyaharan Mam Anusmaran Ya Prayati Tyajan Deham Sayati Paramam Gatim. Om Ityekaksharam Brahma Vyaharan Mam Anusmaran Ya Prayati Tyajan Deham Sayati Paramam Gatim. Anyone else? Anyone online?
Om iti
You want to do
ekakshar
it?
Brahma
Om Ityekaksharam Brahma Vyaharan Mam Anusmaran Ya Prayati Tyajan Deham Sayati Paramam Gatim. Is anybody online?
Om iti ekaksharam Brahma
Om Ityekaksharam Brahma
Vyavaharan Mam Anushmaran
Vyaharan Mam Anusmaran
Yah Prayati Tyajan Deham
Ya Prayati Tyajan Deham
Sayati Paramam Gatim.
sayati paramam gatim. Om. The combination of letters Om. Omkara. Iti. Thus. Eka aksharam. The one syllable. Brahma. Absolute. Vyaharan. Vibrating. Mam. Me. Krishna. Anusmaran. Remembering. Yaha. Anyone who. Prayati. Leaves. Tyajan. Quitting. Deham. This body. Saha. He. Yati. Achieves. Paramam. The supreme. Gatim. Destination. Translation. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. Okay, let's repeat after me. After being situated in this yoga practice, and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters. If one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is clearly stated here that Om, Brahman, and Lord Krishna are not different. So now, before we go any further, I'm going to, of course, read the rest of the purport, but before I do, Om, Brahman, and Lord Krishna are not different. So, this is a little bit we can put in here now. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy of Chintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. It's inconceivably simultaneously one and different. So here Srila Prabhupada is stressing they're all one. Everything is one. We hear everything it's all Krishna's energy. To us, we can make distinctions: external energy, internal energy, a marginal energy. So the external energy of this room, this material world, everything you see, these bodies, is all the external energy. So we make these distinctions. But for Krishna, it's all his energy. It's not different. It's not different from him. So in one sense, it is all one. But in another sense, inconceivably, it's also different. Then there's the spiritual energy, is the spiritual abode, all the spiritual planets. Even Brahman is the spiritual energy. And in that Brahman, there's also planets and variegatedness and people and relationships. So that's also a spiritual energy. And then there is the Jiva Tattva, or the marginal potency, and that's us. We're not the body. We have bodies. The bodies are all made of matter, so it's all the external energy of the Lord. And then we are actually the spiritual energy, but we're not exactly complete spiritual energy in a sense that we're tiny and we can be covered over or influenced. Just like somebody who's not very strong in his thinking, in his mind, and he may get influenced by other people easily to do things that are bad, or even to do things that are good, depends on his association. But he becomes influenced very easily and can become controlled by others. So we as Jiva souls, we're marginal, we can become influenced by this external energy. We become overwhelmed, we want to enjoy these senses of this body, and we think that's going to make us happy. And we become influenced by that, and then we become covered over. So we're marginal because we're spiritual, but now we're thinking we're material, we're acting like we're material, and now we have to suffer the reactions for our activities. So that's the marginal potency. But all of them are actually spiritual. Of course, the spiritual energy, the internal energy is spiritual. Nobody ever said that's not spiritual. And even the marginal energy is easy to see as spiritual. But this external energy, we generally don't see it. But there's the oneness that it is all one because it's all the same energy of the Lord. Different energies, but it's all coming from the Lord, so it's all spiritual. And here, Om, Brahman, and Lord Krishna are not different. So we make distinctions between Brahman and Krishna. Brahman is the all-pervasive aspect of the spiritual energy, but it's not personal. And Krishna is the personality of Godhead. So that Brahman is actually the shining effulgence of the person, Krishna. He has an effulgence that's going trillions, unlimited amount of miles all over the universe. Not this universe, the spiritual sky, the spiritual world. That Brahman is there everywhere. And it's not different from Krishna because it's coming from Krishna. But at the same time, you can see a difference. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu one time was eating dirt, and his mother he found out he was eating dirt. Why are you eating dirt? He said, what is the difference between dirt and the grains? The grains are just the dirt transformed, and then it becomes grains. So what's the difference if we eat grain? And his mother explained to him that the dirt in this form is okay to eat, but in that form it's not. There's a difference. Even though they're both dirt, and ultimately it's just coming from the earth. Where did it come from? It's just made out of the earth, made out of the dirt. So Lord Chaitanya was satisfied with that. So he was teaching by example, teaching his mother that there's difference. So similarly, we should also see the differences between Krishna and Brahman and Om. There are differences. It's easier to see the difference between the impersonal aspect of the Lord and the personal aspect of the Lord. What relationship can you have with Brahman? It's this energy, and it's all around, and I can hug it, and I can feel it. But what do I do? Can I have any kind of a real relationship with Brahman? Like a relationship I can have with another person? You know, with another person, we can joke, we can have fun, we can do so many things. With Brahman, I mean, I could tell it a joke. What is it going to do? He's not going to tell me any jokes, or it's not going to tell me any jokes. It's not the same thing. It's not nearly as great as the personal relationship. It's just an energy, just like electricity is just an energy. And it can be used differently. It can be used for heating, it can be used for cooling. It's the same electric energy. So Krishna has this energy, and he can use it for the external world, for the internal spiritual world. And Brahman is his spiritual energy, but it's just an energy. And you can't have a relationship with an energy. You know, how do you have a relationship with electricity? I mean, you can have a relationship in the sense that, you know, it's over there and you want to avoid it, you know, but you can't have anything. It's just an energy. So there is big difference between Brahman and Krishna. And people who worship Brahman can enter into Brahman. And it's Krishna's spiritual energy. And when you enter into it, it's really nice. At least this is what I hear. I don't remember when I was there last. But it's nice, but it's eventually not nice enough for you to not have a desire, because we desire things, and there's no desiring in the Brahman effulgence. So you might desire something, not even something bad, just desire something. And then you come down from that Brahman back to this material world. It's a nice sound. So we have to see that they're the same, and we have to see the different. Achintya means inconceivable, inconceivably one and different. So the impersonal sound of Krishna is Om. So Krishna sound is the personal sound. The impersonal sound is Om. But the sound Hare Krishna contains Om, because the Brahman is coming from Krishna, it's within Krishna, so whatever is Krishna, everything is contained in him. It's like if I have $100, I also have $5. It's not like $5, no, $5 is not, it's not the same, but it's contained in $100. So Brahman and Om are both contained in the person Krishna. So if you worship Krishna, you're also worshiping them, but not directly. You're directly worshiping the Supreme Person. So that's what we want to do. We want to directly worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is clearly recommended for this age. How is it clearly recommended? Because Om is, even people who chant Om was mainly probably for other ages. It's not recommended for this age. But why should we even chant Om? I mean, we do chant Om when we chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, or Om Purnam Araha Purnamidam. So we do chant Om, but not generally Om. We don't do that generally. Although I've heard some people chanting, beginning kirtan with not necessarily Om, but Hare Krishna. And it's like, this was out on Harinam. Devotee starts chanting, or Nama Om Vishnu. And you can't play mridanga, you can't play kartals, you're just waiting. And hundreds of people walking by while he's leading. And it took him so long, and finally he started chanting so that people can follow. And if you'd like to know who he is, I'll tell you later. He's a really nice devotee, though, really wonderful devotee. But sometimes when he starts, his kirtans are way too slow. So I don't know what that had to do with anything. So generally we don't chant Om like that. The chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is clearly recommended for this age. So if one quits his body at the end of life chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, he certainly reaches one of the spiritual planets according to the mode of his practice. So to go back to you go to the spiritual planets. That's where we want to go. We don't even want to go to just the spiritual planet. We really want to go, speaking for myself, want to go to Krishna Loka. Most of us want to go to the Krishna Loka planet. Narayan is most wonderful. If you see Narayan, you're just in ecstasy, but it's more just awe and reverence. But awe and reverence is a very wonderful relationship with the Supreme Lord. But it's not as high of a relationship as a personal relationship where you forget that he's God and you just love him. You love him like anything. You can't think of anything else but him. But you forget that he's the Supreme Lord, and you treat him as your son, treat him as your lover, you treat him as your friend. Because you can't really treat God as a friend or a son or a lover knowing he's God. It's like you can't, doesn't work. And he wants to enjoy those relationships, so you get covered by Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya, you can't think of anything but Krishna, but Yoga Maya covers you to in the sense that you no longer think he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You just see him as your friend. A good friend, but he's still as a friend. If he wants to go home, we're just playing and we're having a lot of fun, and now he wants to leave because his mother's calling him, we're not going to play with him anymore. So he gets worried about that, and then he stays longer. And then, of course, Mother Jashoda then gets more upset. And you can't get upset if you know he's God. And you wouldn't tell God, well, if you're not playing, we're not going to play with you anymore. You're just, okay, you don't want to play, that's fine. Just do whatever you want. Just tell us when you want to play. That's no fun for Krishna. He wants people to treat him like a regular person. So he enjoys that relationship, and so does everyone else, of course. But even awe and reverence is so wonderful. Our relationship with Srila Prabhupada was with awe and reverence, and it was so wonderful. If you see him, you're with him, you just anything to do with him. You don't even want to say anything, but you're just there. And that was so wonderful. So you can imagine the relationship with Narayan in Vaikuntha would be so wonderful, but it's still not as good as the relationship you can have with Krishna. And even amongst the relationships with Krishna, the love of the gopis is considered the highest relationship, the highest. That's the most surrendered, the most love, the most ecstasy they experience. But others would rather just be a parent, just rather be a friend. Not interested in being a lover. I like to play. I want Krishna as my friend. And I'd be completely satisfied with that. I don't have to be at the top. So similarly, some devotees who don't mind or actually desire to be a friend of Krishna rather than a gopi, there are others who desire just to worship Narayan in Vaikuntha with awe and reverence. And that's their desire, and they're completely satisfied with that. But it's still better, billions of times better, than merging into Brahman. It's considered spiritual suicide. You're giving up your individuality. You're giving up your identity. You are a person. You're not the material person, but you are a person, a spiritual person. Okay. He certainly reaches one of the spiritual planets according to the mode of his practice. So whoever he's worshiping. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he trying to think, what's his name? Was it Murari Gupta who was worshiping Lord Ramachandra? And Murari Gupta was actually Hanuman. And he worshipped Lord Ramachandra. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him that worshiping Lord Ramachandra, who was that? Oh, it's still working okay? I imagine it is, but worshiping Lord Ramachandra is not as great and wonderful as worshiping Radha and Krishna. Worshiping Sitaram is not as great as. So he convinced them, because it's a fact, and Lord Chaitanya can convince you even if something is not a fact. Even Prabhupada can convince the devotees of things, even if they're, he's playing the. One time he did this by playing the part of a Christian who was saying, like, I'm going back to God because I accept Jesus, something like that. And devotees couldn't defeat him. They couldn't explain to him why. And then Prabhupada told them what they should say. And Prabhupada took different positions, and nobody can defeat him no matter what position he took. So you can imagine if Lord Chaitanya was saying something, even if it's not true, first of all, it is true. But so Murari to try to worship Radha and Krishna and give up the worship of Sitaram, and he couldn't do it. And he came back crying to Lord Chaitanya, and Mahaprabhu said, he said that I'm very happy that you can't give up the worship of your Lord. What's the other word for your Lord? Like your something Dev? Ishtadev. Ishtadev, that you couldn't. And I don't know if he told him, I think he may have told him that you are Hanuman. And you can't give up, and you shouldn't give up worship. So, according to who you worship, you go to such a planet, whatever you desire. But you could chant Hare Krishna and get to that planet, whatever planet you want to go to. Although most people who chant want to go to Krishna Loka. Another thing I read, actually, Burijan said that there is a pastime of Lord Chaitanya. It's not in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because I know I would remember it if it was, where Lord Chaitanya had to go to the bathroom. So he went to the bathroom, and he came back, and then he was holding his tongue. And they asked him, why are you holding his tongue? He said, because when he was passing, he couldn't stop chanting. And he thought, Lord Chaitanya is saying, then it shouldn't be chanting when you're doing that. So I tried holding my tongue to stop chanting. And then there was a little boy, and the little boy said, actually, you should always chant. He said, what about when you're dying? You might say, this is an inauspicious time, so I won't chant. No, you should chant when you're dying, you should chant when you're in the bathroom, you should always be chanting. And then Lord Chaitanya said something like, you're my guru, to this little boy. This is from Burijan. So I don't know where it is. It may be in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, I didn't read that, or it may be somewhere else. But the point is, he's trying to teach us that we should chant always, all the time. I remember when we were visiting my parents a very long time ago. And Jiva is chanting in the shower. She's taking a shower and she's chanting. And my father says, she's singing in the bathroom. It's like nobody sings in the bathroom except in the movies, you know. She's singing. He just couldn't fathom it. Like But we chant. We should always chant 24 hours a day. So, okay. The devotees of Krishna enter the Krishna planet, Goloka Vrindavan. For the personalists, there are also innumerable other planets known as Vaikuntha planets. Vaikuntha means no anxiety, place where there's no anxiety. Kunta means anxiety. Vaikuntha is no anxiety. So there are innumerable other planets known as Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky, whereas the impersonals remain in the Brahma Jyoti. So just like here we know there are 9 planets, that's what the scientists know, there are 9 planets in our solar system. But we know that there are millions and millions of planets in this universe. And the universe is an enclosed, it's enclosed. So you can't make any more or less. I mean, matter cannot be created or destroyed. The planets don't get destroyed. I don't know, in the movies planets get destroyed, but I don't know if planets get destroyed. But there are innumerable millions and trillions of planets in this universe. And this is only one universe, and there's millions and trillions of universes. And that doesn't equal, all those millions and trillions of planets in all the different universes don't equal the planets in the spiritual world. So there's so many planets in the spiritual world. You can't conceive of it. It says that the material world is 1/4 of the creation of the Lord, and 3/4 of the spiritual world. So it's inconceivable how many planets there are. And out of all of them, the highest planet is the Krishna Loka planet in the spiritual world. Here we have Brahma Loka, I think is the highest planet in the material world. But it's still temporary, even though they last a long time. Even our planets in this material world, they get all flooded up to all the lower planets get flooded at a certain time, so many times creation, partial devastation. But the higher planets, up the lower planets and the middle planets get flooded. The higher planets, they still stay for a much longer period of time. So there's temporary devastations in this material world of the lower and middle planets. So here, the Vaikuntha planets are in the spiritual sky. They're within the Brahmajyoti, floating in the Brahmajyoti, whereas the impersonalists remain in the Brahmajyoti. They remain floating in the Brahmajyoti just like a planet, but there's no existence of them. It's like they're just the energy. They're just little tiny sparks. They make up the whole Brahmajyoti. So Srila Prabhupada came to offer all of us an opportunity to go back to that highest place, and we have to make some sacrifice. We have to chant Hare Krishna as much as you can. We have to give up certain things, and then that's it. Get initiated. If you're doing those things, then you get initiated. And then you don't ever have to come back here again, or anywhere in the material world. And you go to the Krishna Loka planet. And on the Krishna Loka planet, there's Krishna, his friends, his parents, others that have the same mood as parents. There's his lovers, the gopis. There's servants. There's also living entities who have a neutral relationship, like a tree or a cow, or not a cow, but the ground is conscious. The grass. You can have any one of these relationships on the Krishna Loka planet. So with Krishna. And then there's also another part, if you just kind of take a plane, you don't take a plane, but somehow you could probably just think, and you can go with Lord Chaitanya and join in with the eternal kirtan, having a kirtan eternally, just chanting. And you don't get tired, you don't get hungry, or maybe you take some break. Well, I got to take a little break, I'm wiped out. But you don't have a physical body, so I don't think you'll get wiped out. You have a spiritual body. And you don't really feel hunger and thirst. Even the sages, not the sages, even the kshatriyas, when Krishna and Arjuna were talking on the battlefield, he spoke the whole Bhagavad Gita. That was I don't know how long it took. No, the Srimad Bhagavatam, that's what I'm thinking of. Srimad Bhagavatam was 7 days. 7 days, 7 nights, and he just spoke about Bhagavatam, and Maharaj Parikshit had no hunger whatsoever, no thirst, just completely satisfied just by hearing topics about Krishna. So, and he had a material body like we have, a physical body. It's spiritual because it was fully engaged in serving Krishna, but it's a physical body, made of these material things. And he didn't even have any hunger or thirst. So you can imagine in the spiritual world with a spiritual body, you don't have to have hunger or thirst. But if Krishna's going to eat with his friends, then you'll be hungry and you're going to eat. I don't know exactly how it works because I don't remember. I don't even remember so many things in this life, let alone past lives, and let alone billions and billions of past lives when I was in the spiritual world. And when I made a fatal mistake trying to enjoy separate from Krishna. And we have that same choice now, pretty much at every moment, to try to enjoy separate from Krishna or try to enjoy only in relationship with Krishna. So we have to practice trying to enjoy in relationship with Krishna. By giving Krishna pleasure. If we give Krishna pleasure, then we can enjoy. So I'm going to read the translation again. I'm not going to go on to the next verse because it's a long purport. I wouldn't be able to finish it. And someone tomorrow will have a lot to say because I got a long purport. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. So any questions or comments? Let's start with questions. Yes.
So, during the discourse of the class, you mentioned that Hare Krishna already contains Om, but I am not entirely sure of the reference, but I have heard, or at least that is what I feel, that the first sound in this universe was Om. That is what, something like that. Like the first vibration was of Om.
Where'd you hear this?
And that's why I said I'm not sure. This is.
Well, first vibration that I know of was Tapa. When Brahma, this is before anybody was here. There was Brahma, there was Garbhodakshay Vishnu, the lotus. He came out, he's born on the lotus, he doesn't know where he is. He goes into the lotus, tries to find out. He's trying to figure out why am I here? Where am I? Who am I? What's going on? And then he hears Tapa, Tapa, and I don't know if it's the first vibration, but it's the first vibration anyone heard because who else was there? It was only Brahma. And he knew Tapa meant he has to perform austerities. So people were talking about austerities the other day. Tapasya means voluntarily accepting austerities for making spiritual progress. That's tapasya. It's not really tapasya voluntarily accepting austerities to make material progress. That's not really called tapasya. Maybe called austerities, but it's not tapasya. So Brahma then meditated for 100,000 celestial years, a really long time. And then he figured out what he was supposed to do, and he has to create the whole universe. And he has to create all the people in the universe. So he's the only one, and the word was tapa. So I don't know where you got this from. I'm not saying you're wrong, I just never heard it, and from what I heard, those were the first words within, and he didn't, I don't know if he heard it out loud, if he heard it within his heart, but that's the only thing he heard.
And I have a second question.
Yeah.
During the class, you mentioned that you had awe and reverence kind of relationship with Srila Prabhupada. So you, Mother Jiva, and all the disciples of Srila Prabhupada are most fortunate that who had an opportunity to see him in person. But a neophyte devotee or a new devotee who is coming into the movement who has not had an opportunity to directly have that, so what kind of relationship he or she can aspire for or keep for towards Srila Prabhupada?
Well, it just certainly starts with awe and reverence. Even the devotees with awe and reverence, some of them had closer relationships, but it was always awe and reverence. Even though they may have joked even times, but it was still, You kept your boundaries. You never overstepped your boundaries. I mean, someone may have, because Prabhupada said, familiarity sometimes breeds contempt. So sometimes you get familiar and you become contemptuous. But it doesn't, familiarity breeds contempt is not correct. It sometimes does. But there are people who be familiar with Prabhupada but always have this awe and reverence. And with your guru, that's your relationship, is always with awe and reverence. Your relationship with your guru doesn't really go. You can be friendly, but it's the awe and reverence is there. It's not like with Krishna, where the friends, they get upset with him. You can't get upset with your guru. He's always right. And you always accept what he says, even though you may get friendly, you may joke, but it's awe and reverence. So what would be the relationship with your Parama Guru, which in your case is Srila Prabhupada, or our case it's Bhakti Siddhanta? I still think it's mainly with awe and reverence. I don't think it gets where me and Bhakti Siddhanta are chumming it up, you know. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, high five. No, a relationship is awe and reverence with your superiors. They are all superiors. But I don't know how it is when you get back to the spiritual world, although with your spiritual master, it's still awe and reverence. But I don't know, because if Prabhupada is a friend of Krishna and you're a friend of Krishna, it's like, you know, I don't know how it works.
My motivation of asking question, I do not have a spiritual vision behind it to ask, but like my father and grandfather. So I know that how I used to tease and basically was mischievous towards my grandfather, and I used to be happy of having that kind of a, though friendly, a relationship with my grandfather.
Right.
That's why I was just.
Well, Prabhupada said that the Parama Guru is kinder than the Guru, just like the grandfather is kinder than the father. The father gets heavy, but the grandfather is more lenient. So that is the relationship you have. But even if it's more lenient, I mean, a material grandfather, sometimes you can go over your bounds too. You should still be with awe and reverence, you know, but you can have fun. He's a person you can play, especially when you're really young, you know, you can do anything. But that's my understanding. You're not going to ever get to have an equal relationship. You're always going to be less than them. They always see them as being superior, and you're always inferior. That never changes. So I would think, even as Krishna's friend, just say, I'm back in the spiritual world, I'm Krishna's friend. Say Srila Prabhupada's Krishna's friend. Even though he doesn't have the same body as Srila Prabhupada when he was here, somehow you know it. And he may be closer to Krishna. He's like, I could go through him to get to Krishna or something. I don't know. It's all speculation, but it is awe and reverence. And awe and reverence is great. And other devotees, even with Prabhupada, they were closer. They would joke, you know. I mean, when I was with Prabhupada would joke, and I would laugh, but it wasn't just me. It was a bunch of us. But at the same time, it's not going to change it now with buddies, smack them on the back, all right, Prabhupada. You know, you don't do that. You don't think that. It's always awe and reverence. I used to think about Vaikuntha, that why would anybody want to go to Vaikuntha, you know? It's like, it's not any fun, you know? And then, by Krishna's grace, he got me to think of the relationship with Prabhupada. And that was the most wonderful thing. Nothing could be more wonderful than being in the presence of Srila Prabhupada. Just looking at him, chanting, looking at him speaking, just whatever he's doing, playing the kartals, just watching. It was just, there was nothing else on your mind. Like, when I see videos now I'd like to see more of the devotees who were there, but everyone's just focusing on Prabhupada, and they pretty much just videotape Prabhupada. And I'd like them to go a little slower and show who was there in there, because I know a lot of devotees, but everyone was just fixed on Prabhupada. It was really wonderful. So then, when I thought about that, then I could really appreciate more of the Vaikuntha planets, how wonderful they are. Because it's not just the Jiva, it was just amazing. Imagine the Supreme Lord having a relationship with him in awe and reverence, and he has a reciprocal relationship. They can't, in one sense you can't beat it unless you got a relationship where you're covered by Yoga Maya and you have a relationship with Krishna. Anyway, by Prabhupada's mercy, he's changed our lives, and completely for the better. Completely for the better. He's just made everything so nice. In this life, and then we can also go back to the spiritual world at the end of this life. So wonderful. I mean, I think of my life before I became a devotee, and I think of my life after becoming a devotee. And before a devotee, I can see I was really, even though relatively speaking, compared to other people, I was pretty good, but I can see I was terrible. It was before becoming a devotee. That's my life. But, and I see since I met Prabhupada, since I took seriously his Krishna consciousness, that my life has changed. I stopped being so bad. So I have everything to thank Prabhupada for. When I think of my past, I pretty much my past before being a devotee, it's like so many, I just see I was really bad. And I see that Prabhupada is, since then it's changed. I don't see it as I was so bad as a devotee. But before I was. Anyway, so I have everything to thank Prabhupada for. Even if I didn't go back to Krishna, at least he's made me a better person, way better person, no comparison. I mean, I still got a long way to go, but I'm way better than I was. So we can end here. Anybody online have a question? Is there anybody online? Okay, 4 people. Okay. Anyway, let's offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada.